Hello, my name is Mark Baines, and welcome to Training Made Fun's presentation on functional training. With functional training, it's a term that's often used to describe exercises that improve daily function, or more specifically, that mimic everyday function. Certainly, functional training should improve daily function, but not necessarily mimic everyday function. That's a common misunderstanding. We don't really want to mimic things that are done in the real world that maybe shouldn't be the case, that we shouldn't move certain ways, should not be mimicked in the gym. We shouldn't try to emulate the way that people move outside the gym. When they come in the gym, we want to understand physiology as a whole, understand biomechanics as a whole, understand structure, understand general concepts of kinesiology, then take a look at the individual we're working with and figure out what their coordination capability is, what their structure, generally speaking, is, what their background and experience in exercise is, and figure out best how to help them move better to be able to have more coordination, better neuromuscular facilitation, better communication between the nervous system and the muscular system, or technically between the nervous system, endocrine system, and the muscular system to be able to move the skeletal system, the skeleton, right? That's a very complex concept in that there's a lot of things that can work. There's a lot of things that are not going to work. And we have to be as clear as we possibly can about the best things that we can be using to help our people at any given moment in time. There's never just one way of doing anything. At the same time, we're always looking for the most efficient, most effective, and safest ways to apply concepts. In this case, to get people moving better in the real world, to get them moving more biomechanically efficiently so that when they go out there, they're less likely to hurt themselves. They move better with less effort, and they can do more things. All those things are good, but don't try and mimic the real world. Don't try and throw a ball with a cable machine by grabbing the cable handle and having that in your hand as you try to perform a throwing action. It's not the same thing because the forces are different. The forces on a few ounce ball versus a cable machine where you have a load that's pulling directly behind you versus pulling down from the pull of gravity makes everything in exercise very different. We're trying to mimic a golf swing with a cable pulley. It can't be done either. It can't be done. You'd have a golf club, or just perform basic rotational motions, general spinal stability type actions. General mobility as a whole and strength as a whole should be added on top of skill to help people move better. Now we're going to talk about some general ideas here. We talk about training that stimulates the body the way it's naturally designed to move or naturally engineered to move. That's our goal, right? We want to develop proper motor patterns. A motor pattern is the establishment of communication between the nervous system and the endocrine system, as we just mentioned, and the muscular system to get the right muscle fibers, the right fibers, to fire in the right sequence at the right time. That's very, very precise and really, really important. There's a big difference between when you fire off a gun, one person slowly kind of accelerates out of the starting blocks or off the line to go to run, or one person that fires off at an incredible rate. One person immediately moves into very good technique. One person is very wild and uncontrolled. Motor patterns are very different between those people. We want to get, in the case the goal is sprinting, we want to get someone to be very, very precise in how they move. If we're lifting weights, we want to be very, very precise in how they move. It's not just a matter of taking a weight and pushing it over your head, and by doing so a certain number of times with a given weight is going to be the ideal for performance and overall muscle growth or overall strength. It is not that simple. If it were that simple, there'd be no need for us, and there'd be no need to be discussing this in the first place, because everybody would just go grab objects and start pushing them around and pulling them around and get bigger and stronger. And it just doesn't work like that. It's much more precise than that. And there are thousands of things we can do wrong. That's why we have to really be clear about what the body is capable of, as well as what maybe it's meant to do, on top of what the joint capabilities and muscular capabilities of a given person might be, right? A lot to take into account to develop proper motor patterns. If we're going to try to get someone moving better, you've got to start moving slowly, move very slowly. How slowly? As slow as they can with control. And we gradually, if they can do it slower, then we start speeding up to more of a normal speed, but go slower than normal. Slower than what someone normally would move, make them go slower than that. If slowing them down doesn't work, then we also reduce the weight, right? And we also reduce the range of motion maybe a little bit too, until they get the concepts down. Simplify the motion, make things easier, less joint actions involved in an exercise, certainly less load, maybe no load at all in some cases, and certainly making sure that motion is performed very slowly before we start worrying about speed or load or significant ranges of motion, okay? I can tell right away, and you can as well, if you throw someone a basketball or throw someone a ball in general, if they play catch a lot or played sports, you can tell within a second, a few seconds easily. It's very easy to see. whether their coordination is there or not, if they developed the proper motor patterns. Now, certainly that ideally is developed at young ages so people can move better when they get older, but the reality is that you can develop coordination and improve motor pattern response at any point in life. How much? We don't know until we start trying and doing what we can. Now, oftentimes those functional type movements, we really should easily and could easily call this movement skill development, right? But work on this movement skill is often multiplanar, because most cases in the real world you move in more than one plane. You don't just grab an object up the ground and bring it up straight in front of you, and then turn and then go like one plane at a time. Usually you're moving in more than one plane. But it doesn't mean that a functional movement or a movement skill can't just be one plane, because it could. If the question was, can you move in only one plane and the movement be functional? Yes. Is most functional movement typically multiplanar? Yes. So be clear about the question, right? Requires more neuromuscular control than non-functional. We brought that up to discuss a point. A lot of people refer to things like dumbbell curls, like arm curls, elbow flexion, pure elbow flexion with the dumbbell, bringing your arm up, or just working on isolated elbow extension, that kind of thing, as not really being functional exercises. And from a standpoint, if the definition is, and ask the person when they say this, ask them, is your definition mimics everyday life? Then by that definition, you're right, that's not functional. But at the same time, if we can perform a movement and it gives us physiological benefit in terms of either strength or mobility or flexibility or endurance or any of those factors without causing any detrimental effects to the person, then we have an exercise that's going to be functional. There's going to be some transfer, if you will, of that capability into overall strength, into overall movement capabilities. Okay? So you can argue almost any exercise potentially can actually improve function to some extent. But we're not looking to try different things. People often ask then, what do you think of this exercise? You're going at it from the wrong direction. We got to be clear about what the goal is, what we want to accomplish, then we figure out the right motion to accomplish it, not figure out a way to find a way to fit an exercise into a program. You're coming at it from the wrong direction to get the most benefit and the least risk out of what we do. Right? Incorporates many full body movements. Well, functional or movement skill type development exercise does not necessarily, or neuromuscular facilitation, does not necessarily have to be full body. It can be a single joint action, but certainly over time we want people to have more complicated capabilities just without going crazy. Someone does not have to be able to do a muscle up or a more challenging type exercises. If you don't know what that is, don't worry about it. It's not necessary. People love to do it. If they want to do it, do it. But you don't have to be able to do something like that to prove that you're strong or capable. Matter of fact, you can go your whole life without being able to do something like that and still get plenty of benefit out of what you do. But if you love it, you do it. Don't confuse the two. Okay? But it doesn't have to be a full body motion to get benefit, but certainly the capacity to be able to handle different loads or different stresses over time with greater joint action, more joints moving at one time, and more body movement as a whole is certainly a good overall goal to be looking to achieve longer term. Okay? But it doesn't necessarily mean full body movements. And certainly, adding more movement into an exercise does not make it more efficient or more effective. A lot of times people will make an exercise more complicated or more difficult as if that's the goal. Making it more difficult, that's not really the goal. Making it more appropriate, that's the goal. The more appropriate it is with the proper stress, that's going to meet our goals, not just making it more difficult or more challenging. We're better than that. We can be better than that. Okay? It's dynamic, meaning that it's movement and it's under control. Right? It's always under control. If they can't control the motion, they shouldn't be doing it. If you sprint and you're out of control, you probably shouldn't be sprinting. If you're trying to do Olympic lifting and doing snatches or jerks or cleans and your form is horrible, then maybe you shouldn't be doing this. But if you slow down and with a lighter load and you can do it, great. Do that for a while. How long? Well, as long as it's necessary until you can make it look great. Literally, when you're watching someone move doing any exercise, if it's fluid, if it's smooth, it's controlled, and you're literally going, that just looks nice. That's really, really impressive, moving that well. Maybe this person's ready to handle either greater speeds or greater durations or greater loads. Those kinds of discussions can now be opened up. But if they don't move really, really well, we got to take a back step or maybe numerous back steps to try and figure out what joint actions are they lacking, what coordination are they lacking, what do they need. That's not really an easy answer. That's when we go back to assessments, and maybe we broaden our perspective on assessments and go into greater assessments to understand more specifically about any individual's needs. Okay, there's a whole host of possibilities we could possibly look at beyond the scope of what we're talking about here. Okay, that said, Movement should always, when we talk about repetitive motion, like exercise, you're not doing one rep of something. You're typically doing tens, 20, 30, 50, maybe hundreds or thousands, like running, right? Or cycling or something more endurance related. You're going to do rep after rep after rep after rep, right? We want to make sure the more we do something, the more specifically important it is to stay within the biomechanical limitations of the body, as all exercise should be. Make sure we understand, and hopefully we've said it before, you've seen it in the videos or you've seen it at our workshop, but we want to always make sure people understand the idea that there's no such thing as a bad movement. It's really important. You can do whatever you want, move your head around, whatever you want to do. That's not bad or wrong. Start adding weight to it, that may not be the best idea. Adding speed to it, maybe moving a lot faster, may not be the best idea. Start randomly moving different parts of you really fast with a lot of load and for long periods of time. When you start changing variables like load, like duration, like speed or intensity or force output or range of motion, then we have to talk more about is that a good idea or not? Is that the most efficient, most effective, safest choice of actions to take at this time? That's something we can discuss and decide if it's the right choice or not. Okay. When we're warming up, most people, most of the time when they warm up, are doing cardiovascular exercise. That is not wrong. There's no wrong here, but what's the most efficient, most effective? Because unless they're a gym rat and they love going to the gym, we're not looking for just, let's have some fun doing some random things. What gives me the most bang for my buck? If you asked a person point blank and said, do you want to just stuff, or do you want to do the most specific things that actually will give you the greatest benefit with the least amount of risk? They'd go, are you kidding me? Is there such a thing? I want that. Nobody in their right mind would say anything else, unless it's someone who just loves exercise. Like we said before, if you're a gambler and you love to go to Las Vegas and just gamble money, you just love gambling for the sake of gambling. It's just fun. That's a lot of people with exercise. Do not confuse that with the 99% of the population whose goal is to get something from the exercise, not the exercise itself. There's a big difference. Okay, we're trying to be very clear about that when we talk about exercise now for the functional aspect of the benefit of what we do. It should be at least 5-10 minutes long to get the proper benefit to warming up. Because yeah, we are, of course, starting lower intensity. Whatever your 0% intensity is, like your resting heart rate, right? But your 20% or probably maybe a little higher than that for your HRI, your initial heart rate when you walk in the gym, right? We're trying to build you gradually up to whatever in general intensity, not necessarily just heart rate, maybe not heart rate at all, but generally the intensity capability of the muscle fibers, the muscles and the joint actions that you're involving for the day today, for the workout or training session today. That's what we're trying to get built up to, this gradual level of intensity where they're ready to go. And that should be a gradual process over the course of several minutes. And it might be longer than that. It could be 15-20 minutes, but 5 to 10 minutes is a pretty good number. And if the goal is supposed to be a very, very intense sprint, power, explosive type workout, closer to 5 minutes is probably what you need. And if you can't get warmed up in 5 minutes and you're supposed to be doing explosive speed, power type workout or training session, you're probably not ready to do that stuff today if you can't get warmed up in 5 minutes, or you're not doing the right things in your warm-up. One of the two. But though, if we're talking more about endurance related or high intensity intervals or more hypertrophy or just overall coordination development and basic capacity for handling stress, yeah, warm-up periods could probably easily be longer, 10-15 minutes or more, all depending upon someone's goal, the temperature in the room, all sorts of variables like that. Okay, these are general ideas, minimum 5 minutes to 10 minutes. Okay. The warm-up allows for increased body temperature and blood circulation. Certainly, as you start moving, the body temperature increases. Circulation to the muscles that you're moving starts increasing. If you don't get enough water, you're not going to get the proper circulation. If you don't get the proper nutrients in your body, you're not going to get the right circulation. If you're not rested, you're not going to get the right circulation, right? Your body's not going to regulate temperature very well. There's a lot of variables that go into this, right? But that said, when it comes to exercise itself, the goal is not just to get your temperature up and circulation of blood. If that were true, we could move randomly and wildly and get our body temperature up and our blood circulating, and that would be the end-all be-all to exercise. It's not that general like that. Yeah, it would be great if that's all it took, just move something. Yeah, it's much deeper than that. It's not just move. In the beginning, you don't do much of anything, just move. But when the goal is actually benefit to movement and how you move, moving better, pain-free, skill-specific, and getting better at how you move, more powerful, stronger, more endurance, you got to be more precise. In which case, we're trying to work on work capacity, which is essentially endurance, and force production, producing more force. How do you do that? Depends on someone's needs. Find movements that are specific to warming up that particular joint area, shoulder, hip, whatever it is, and use those anywhere between at least 3, maybe as many as 7, maybe more, but 3 to 7 is a good number of different exercises or movements to engage in your primary warm-up for functionally, if you will, or movement skill specific, if you will, warming up your body for preparing it for whatever comes next, part of the training session. Cool down. Now, first of all, most clients, most individuals we work with, probably advisable to do the warm-up with them. Just don't tell them you're warming up. Just start doing stuff. Start doing exercise, and you're gradually increasing the intensity. They have to know it's called the warm-up. They might go, oh, I do the warm-up by myself. I already warmed up. Yeah, you probably didn't warm up how I want you to warm up, so now you're warming up with me. You could say that, or you could just do exercise that's specific to the needs of today. That's what we would highly advise you do. The cool down is something that most people will skip before they go home. They wonder why they're stiff and they're sore or not feeling good or worn out or fatigued the next day or next 2 or 3 days. In most cases, it's as simple as you missed a proper cool down, which could be as simple as 10 to 15 minutes or so. A little less maybe, but you're minimum 5 minutes, but really 10 to 15 minutes is a good number. You could go longer, okay? You're trying to bring the body back to homeostasis, to return the body back to a normalized state where hormonally your body is more normalized, nervous system is more normalized, your body's relaxing, you're breathing at a normal rate, heart rate is returned to raised basically to a normal rate. All the things that you want from your body to be able to recover from the stress you just gave it. We don't want too much intensity. We don't want too much going on so much that we can't recover well from it. If you can't recover from what you did, either your cool down was improper or the exercise session itself was too intense, or you did too much there. Something in the programming is incorrect. You can't cool down and feel good by the time you walk away from that gym. You shouldn't be stiff anymore. You shouldn't be sore right when you're walking out the door. You shouldn't be all swole like some people are in high intensity type training or hypertrophy type training. Swole, like while you're doing it, that increased blood circulation to that area, increased water and hydration to the muscles, certainly is normal with hypertrophy type training programs or high intensity interval type stuff, or blood rushes to your legs or your arms to perform high level intensity output for 20 to 60 seconds. That's very, very normal to feel that development of lactate, the excess hydrogen ions trying to be removed by the body trying to replenish ATP all at the same time. Very normal, but you want to see a recovery period followed by I feel good again. That's the goal. The cool down is supposed to return blood flow back to the area. That's how it decreases soreness, replenish with nutrients the body to the muscles again, to remove all the metabolic waste, and prepare the body to go do it again here, either later today, another set if you will, but in this case with the cool down, probably tomorrow, maybe a couple, 2 or 3 days later. If it takes you more than 3 or 4 days to recover from something you did at any point in time with anything, whereby you're not back to normalized function again like you were 3 or 4 days ago, whatever you did, there's something wrong there. It's either the incorrect in the cool down period or incorrect in the programming itself. What exactly? That's the puzzle you have to look forward to trying to solve. It's not as simple as, oh, I know what it is every time. Nah, something much more complex. Got to take a closer look at what you're doing as to why you're feeling that. Stiffness, soreness, fatigue, all those things should not be felt. We're trying to avoid them as much as possible, get incredible progress while minimizing those other problems. Okay, it's got to be light and continuous because it needs to be aerobic. It needs to be, you're not breathing hard. It needs to be something intensity-wise. You probably could do it for 10, 15, 20 minutes or more. You can't do it for that long of a period. The cool down itself is too intense, and it's more towards conditioning as opposed to cooling down. That said, some good ideas about basic concepts, warming up and cooling down, and the concept of functional or movement skill focused exercise. We'll look forward to talking to you again for our next module.